Today I'm going to be showing you how to use basic tools or basic things in the kitchen to make ballistics gel. People buy the packets from Walgreens or Walmart of Knox unflavored gelatin, but I was able to find some cans. These are 1 pound cans, so 16 ounces. The generic ratio is 1 ounce for every cup. There are 16 cups in a gallon, so I'll just be using this to determine how much water I'm using. And then there's a mold here that I marked the level for. Didn't compensate for the gelatin, but it shouldn't be much higher than that line. I'm going to be making 2 of these molds since they have 2 1 pound cans, and then I'm going to stack them lengthwise in order to catch the mold. Many different ways you can do this. Using really hot water can affect the mold at the end, so I just use relatively warm water from the sink. I don't use it on a heater. So let's start by filling up the gallon. Then I'll put the mold into the sink. You don't actually have to use the mold the very first time. Some people use a pan. I find that it'll actually be better. It takes much longer just dissolving in water like this, but the overall product at the end is much better. These cans. So this is much easier than the packets. You usually buy a box with 32 packets or 8 packets. But I found these on Amazon. It was about 20 bucks for both. So much better. The key to doing this right is when mixing, you're only really adding a small amount. I'm just going to be using this to mix it around. You're going to make this by slowly pouring the powder into the water and mixing it as evenly as possible. Using an electric mixer will make bubbles again. There is a way to remove the bubbles quickly. It's cinnamon leaf oil. I have no idea where you can find it. Just look it up, find it somewhere. In order to get rid of the clumps easier, I found that it's easy to just bring the clumps to the side and scrape them up against the wall. Helps break them down to smaller bits and they dissolve much quicker. Okay, I have a tendency to repeat things, but just take it as me emphasizing what's important. Clumps are gone, have warm water or hot water running in the background, so that transfers kind of through the plastic. In order to get rid of the bubbles, you can just put a little bit of soap on the tip of your finger. And it brings the bubble to the edges. You can scoop it off in a few minutes, but I'm going to let the warm water get rid of some of the bubbles inside of the mixture before putting it in the refrigerator. At this point, you're ready to put it in the fridge. Here's the first mixture. Turned out really, really well. Doesn't look very see-through with this small 30-watt light bulb in the refrigerator, but when we're in the sun, I'm pretty confident that we're going to be able to see everything that's going on as far as the rounds being in there. Here's a 40 Smith & Wesson PDX-1 that we will be testing. So, there's a size comparison, or my hand. And then another angle here. Yeah, you get to see what's in my fridge. Almost nothing. That's how a college student lives right there. Hot dogs and cheese and a few eggs. So, this will probably take a few hours to cool down. It's a full gallon. So I leave it for the entire day or overnight before removing it, because even though the surface may be cured, the inside might not, and as soon as you bump it out of the mold, it spills everywhere and makes a huge mess, and you waste all your Ballistics gel. So that came from, each one of these came from one of its own cans here, 1 pound. Here's the second box completed. Very dense stuff. Some people might argue that you really need to experiment with the hardness and the actual structure of gelatin by adding more water or less water in the ratio and adjusting the ratio so it's more realistic to what flesh is like. However, my argument back to that is not all organs inside the body are going to be the same consistency. They're not going to be, you know, some might be more viscous, some might be less viscous, some might provide more resistance or less resistance. And of course this doesn't include bones, so there are a lot of variables that you can add to say, well, this is pretty close, so I think it's not really worth the effort in saying that it's not close enough. I believe it is close enough. We're going to test it out and see what these 40 Smith & Wesson rounds will do, not just the PDX-1 but a few others, Federal HSTs, 135 grain and 180 grain as well. And remember, this doesn't keep forever when it's wet. This is derived from collagen. It's actually separated from pig skin. So this actually has real protein.